Well, there's only one thing better than Nigeria's independence. That's Nigerians themselves. And there's only another, even more interesting. That's the true Nigerian spirit, which was demonstrated as Nigeria celebrated its 65th independence anniversary with a lot of reassurance about hope and what is to come. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect morning starter, which brings you even more hope and delight. I am Bukola Koka.
Do I need to add anything? Welcome to the show. I'm Kayode Okikilu. We're live for you here in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital. Yes, the president has been in Lagos commissioning the Wole Soyinka Center, which such a beauty, I must say, to behold. There was a proper event yesterday to mark all of that. So that was the highlight of Independence Day celebration.
The remodeled National Arts Theatre, now the new Wole Soyinka Arts Theatre and Cultural, complete the new nomenclature for Mikadi. It requires some getting used to. One of those things, that makes you excited about what is to come for Nigeria. We hope for, more cultural activity, more of Nigeria's heritage on display, more arts, both visual and, of course, the performing arts on display, showcasing Nigeria to the world, coming from that old legacy structure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's important to follow the trail of events. Yes, it used to be, for a lot of people, it still is the National Theatre, but it is now known as the Wole Soyinka Center for Culture and Creative Arts, aka National Arts Theatre. Let's just solve that. So there's no issue around that. But what is more important is the fact that he has accepted the renaming of that center. But that was not the big event yesterday, but somehow that stole the spotlight, understandably, because the president was there. That's a national monument. By the way, the iconic design of the National Arts Theatre looks like the cap of a military general. But the main event, of course, is Nigeria's independence. It's the day after Independence Day. And one of the events played out yesterday that a lot of people maybe didn't pay attention to because of the presidential nationwide broadcasts, all of the other events across the country. By the way, that is the remodeled National Arts Theatre, Bukola, which is now known as the Wole Soyinka Center for Culture and Creative Arts. It was, by the way,
Wole Soyinka Center for Culture and Creative Arts.
Yes. This was done by the Bankers Committee, by the way, the SANEF project. So this was actually the private sector coming to the rescue of Nigeria in that sense, to ensure that our very, very important monument for arts and culture is preserved. Not only preserved, but is in fine shape and form. So it's a beauty to behold. It speaks to what we can achieve with public and private partnership. In fact, what was beautiful also yesterday was the reenactment of Fela's performance, which was directed by Bolanle Austin Peters. But the president had a couple of things to say. He attended with his wife and, of course, Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka. So let's take a listen to what President Bola Tinubu had to say yesterday.
Of this, the banker committees have found it necessary to reward the entire continent. The world gathered there, Africa gathered there for Festa 77. The entire continent was bubbling. Nigeria was a proud nation. Tonight, let me take this opportunity to say one thing that is very, very important to me, to you, Ama's government, and Nigeria in diaspora. That is, stop talking about Nigeria in the ill, negative tone.
So there you see President Bola Tinubu again reiterating the point that do not speak about Nigeria in negative tone. He said that a day before that, he was in Imo State. He's spoken about that time and again. So there you have it, one of the highlights of yesterday, Bukola.
In the spirit of Nigeria's 65th independence anniversary, it can't be said enough. But as the theme suggests, all hands must be on deck. So if the government is calling on Nigerians to reflect the true spirit of the Nigerian nation, resilience, patriotism, sacrifice, then the same is expected of the elected and appointed as well. But without taking the focus away from the subject matter, let's emphasize that the new national theatre, in line with the Nigerian spirit, must be preserved. The remodeled infrastructure must be maintained, such that generations after it can also, make use of this legacy structure, such that the stories of the past of deterioration will remain in the past, will not, resurface. I'm not quite sure whether the management of the new Wole Soyinka Center for Culture and Creative Arts will be in private hands or in public hands. But whatever the case, we really do hope that the remodeled structure will be preserved in a sustainable way henceforth. That's quite important.
I was going to say amen to that, but we must work. The president, I know he has called for an endowment fund to be set up by the Central Bank of Nigeria to maintain the National Arts Theatre, aka the Wole Soyinka Center. So this is usually our challenge, maintaining such structure. So is there going to be an endowment fund? Whatever the case is, we must ensure that we maintain this. Let us change the narrative and show the coming generation that indeed we are different. So yes, we can talk about not speaking negative, but let's really show it by maintaining and doing the right things as a people. But another thing happened yesterday, Bukola, that a lot of people may have missed due to all of the activities around Independence Day, and that is the agreement between Dangote and PENGASSAN, brokered, of course, by the federal government. So early yesterday, just before the president's speech, a statement was released by the Ministry of Labor. In fact, it was signed by the Minister of Labor and Employment, speaking to the conciliation meeting between Dangote Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association at PENGASSAN. So what we can tell you categorically is that, well, there's been an agreement that the management of Dangote shall immediately start the process of taking the disengaged staff to other companies within the Dangote group with no loss of pay. So that is the first page of the document that details how they got there. And in the second page, you see all of the details. But it's quite interesting, Bukola, because yes, PENGASSAN says they have accepted, except that they have issues with some gray areas, and they will not give notice next time to go on leave. So is this a win-win for you, Bukola, or?
Well, I speak for the Nigerian people, not necessarily for the unionists or for the marketer here, in this case, Dangote Refinery. But we must, listen very carefully to what Mr. Osifo is saying. They are suspending the strike, and they're not calling it off.
As always.
There's a difference between the two. So suspension means it could be resumed at any point in time. And the reason that they have decided to abide by this agreement, which is unfavorable to them, in his own words, is because they respect laws, they respect institutions, and they respect procedures. But they cannot quite say the same for Dangote. Mr. Osifo was quite clear when he also said that Dangote may not abide by the rules or the terms of agreement as it didn't with Newpeng. So those issues we'll have to really follow up with him subsequently to find out what are those reasons that they have reservations about, the commitment of the other party to the terms of agreement reached. But what is worrying, as we note his words, is that the strike could be resumed if, the other party does not abide by the terms of agreement. And that is where Nigerians come in, because if there's a suspension of supply of gas and other, crude oil products to Dangote refinery, which is significantly now meeting Nigeria's domestic consumption of petrol. What happens to the pump price of petrol? Dangote, on its part, amid this conflict, had also said that it was going to begin selling petrol in naira, in dollars, not in naira. What are the implications of that on the Nigerian people? How do we protect workers' rights and at the same time preserve a national asset that stands as a beacon of hope and pride to not just Nigeria, but to also the international community, as we are now beginning to see exportation of petroleum products, which is, what Nigeria should have been positioning, to do decades before this, not just at this point in time. Those are the critical questions that we should be asking, and we're going to put them, through to the representatives of both sides in the coming days, because it's an important conversation that should continue until we see a definitive resolution of all issues. So that's quite important.
Very important.
Yeah.
But don't worry, the president of TUC, Mr. Festus Osifo, joins us on the program in the coming moments to walk us through some of those gray areas he talked about and what the future holds in that sector. But I think for now, Nigerians can rest easy, particularly those who are queuing to buy petrol, those who are panic buying. You can actually rest easy now. It looks like the storm is over, perhaps temporarily. But at least you can still sing that song a little bit. But while all of that is happening, there's a lot of issues in Lagos State as well, particularly at the Trade Fair International Market, where there's been demolition of structures by the state government over what it termed lack of approval for those structures. Although the traders themselves say, well, we got approval from the management board, which is managed by the federal government, only to hear that we don't have approval and then our buildings pulled down, our livelihoods gone like that. Well, the Labour Party presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, visited Trade Fair alongside some other leaders from the region. You had Senator Abaribe and Senator Ume, as well as other leaders visiting. And Mr. Peter Obi had some very strong words to say about that. Understandably, being a businessman, he understands what it means to invest in a business and just have your investment come down in a matter of minutes. He put out a post, actually, on X following that his visit to Trade Fair with other leaders.
He had quite a lot to say, Kadi, about 5 paragraphs, but the crux of what he's saying should be found in the last 2 paragraphs. He's urging government at all levels to act with compassion, fairness, and a deep sense of justice, especially at this difficult time. Many of the affected traders invested heavily, often through loans, in the hope of securing their livelihoods and contributing to the wider economy. And to destroy such legitimate investment without due process is not only unjust, but also economically destructive. He goes on to say that a society that seeks to make progress must protect enterprise, encourage productivity, and defend the dignity of its citizens. And that's the statement coming through from Mr. Peter Obi on his official X handle, which he put out, I believe, in the last 24 hours. But more importantly, what's the enduring solution to this conflict of interest in the management of Trade Fair Complex? This is not the first time we're seeing such demolitions. It also happened last year. So why have the Federal Housing Authority and the Lagos State government not come to a resolution on right of jurisdiction over the Trade Fair Complex? What is at stake there? Is it the revenue in the, that is drawn from taxes that these entrepreneurs pay, or is it also revenue from other aspects of management? We must ask those questions, especially in the interest of the traders. As Mr. Peter Obi has said, enterprise is at the heart of this, and there must be a human face to, governance and management. But of course, that's also huge on our talking points today on the program.
Certainly. He titled that post on X, "A Test of Impunity, Justice, and Compassion." There's been a lot of debate about his visit. Should he have visited in such manner? Should he have maybe seen the state government first, held a meeting with them before going to the market? What is this going to do then to this issue moving forward? Because a lot of people have said, the way you came it doesn't leave a very good taste in the mouth. It's almost confrontational, particularly because this is a state that is under a governor in that sense, and it would be nice if you had a meeting with him, said, you know what, let's resolve this, and then maybe visit, rather than visit first and then leave. But we'll take a look at all of those issues, particularly if indeed there was due process before the demolition. The Lagos State government is going to be joining us on the program, and of course we'll be having the leaders from the Southeast as well who paid a visit in the coming days. So that's a look at some of the major issues that we'll be looking at on the program this morning. But of course, we're going to start off with a look at how the front pages are reporting all of the big stories today in a moment. Please stay with us. Let's get into the front pages as we're joined by the Chairman, Guild of Public Affairs, Analysts of Nigeria in Enugu, Mr. Ambrose Ibuka, joins us virtually on the program. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning.
Oh, good morning. It's the day after Independence Day, Mr. Ibuka, and I know lots of talking points from the president's speech yesterday, even across states. Yes, because governors also had their own Independence Day events, and we had pockets of issues here and there, the whole Dangote PENGASSAN issue. So let's see just how the front pages are reporting these stories. We're going to start off with the Guardian newspaper, and Guardian leads, yes, with Nigeria's Independence Day conversation. Nigeria at 65, leaders call for reforms on poverty, insecurity, faltering democracy. It's a page 6 read, so it just gives a sense of some of the similarities in the messages we had coming through from all of the leaders yesterday. And you also see the Dangote rift with PENGASSAN story as well on the front page. So it's a day after Independence Day. While we always have the speeches, it's in no short supply. The big question is usually, so what next after this? How do we ensure that all that we do aligns with all we say? Mr. Ibuka.
Nigeria 65. It's unfortunate that, or one of my posts. Anyway, but yesterday too was my birthday. So I share the same birthday with Nigeria, and each time I keep lamenting that while I'm growing as a man, Nigeria refused to grow as a father. And it pains me most of the time when we celebrate, and it looks like we are always wobbling, going back, each time. For a country that has so much potentials, for a country that has so much human resources, for a country that is the biggest, one of a habitat to the highest black population on earth, we are not where we ought to be. When we compare Nigeria also with those Latin American countries, some parts of Asia that we had independence with, we found out that we are not doing well. When you compare ourselves with Brazil, for example, Mexico, compare ourselves with Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. I mean, these are the countries, Qatar, even here, Saudi Arabia, here, all these countries, that we are far above in terms of economic growth and GDP in the 60s, and that we have better infrastructure and the rest. And then now we are trailing behind. Now people are comfortable comparing us with small African countries. You find that it's supposed to be lamentation. But again, the process or the positives that we have remained as one entity. Our population continues to grow stronger. We have a very youthful population, and the world still looks up to us, especially the black race everywhere in the world. And that is what we should hold on to. By God's grace, our mineral resources are still very strong. We still have vast amount of natural resources, solid minerals. Even in our oil and gas sector, the gas deposits in Nigeria is one of the highest in the world. So God has blessed us. But something still remains to be done. The human factor in the administration of this country, it still looks like something we have not got right.
But Mr. Ibuka, the president has said that people should avoid saying negative things about the country. So how do you place your comments in the context of the president's comments? Because it says, if you keep saying negative things about the country, it will naturally pull the country down.
Well, the president is not a pastor or is not a religious person that sells hope. He doesn't need to sell hope of salvation to anybody. The indicators on ground, whether Nigerians have, the economic factors on ground, what is the inflation level, what is the unemployment level, what is the, in terms of purchasing power, where is the middle class those days that we used to have, where is the manufacturing sector? I used to say, and I keep on reiterating, that I'm a product of when Nigeria worked. For example, my father worked in the Nigerian Sugar Company in Bashita in Kwara State, that employed over 100,000 people, both directly and indirectly, and created market for millions in terms of sales and marketing. I also grew up with my uncle in Warri Delta State Company, Alaja, where that worked very well. We're exporting steel. We're even building a Jokuta, which was 4 times bigger. There was Delta Glass as well. There was a Volkswagen in Lagos. There was Span Pujo in Kaduna, and so many others. Where are those places? Where are those things? Where are the companies that the federal government set up? Where are the textile mills in Kaduna? And so when people when leaders come in this now and then and say we should not talk about it, they enjoyed Nigeria. This leaders, set of leaders we have been having since the last 10 years, enjoyed Nigeria. They were on scholarships, they were on free education. So why can't the present leaders from the 40 years ago transmit what they got from the first generation, from Awolowo, from Zik? Even at the point of Gowon, we still had something going. So this our present set leaders collapse those things and making us suffer. And they say we should not complain about suffer. There's a proverb in Africa that says you don't beat a child and tell him not to cry. Nigerians are crying because they're being beaten black and blue. It's a harsh economy everywhere. So saying those nice things, just like telling us, though, don't say bad things about the dead. Oh, don't use your mouth to pull down, talking about prophetic utterances. Please, let's reserve that for night vigils in the church, not for real economic problems we're having.
Well, Mr. Igokwe, it's as if the song of lamentation is not yet over if you look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. But when you started your commentary initially, I couldn't miss out the point that you made about Nigeria. You growing as a father, but Nigeria not necessarily growing. Just yesterday, amid the celebration, my own 7-year-old said, Nigeria is like a grandma at 65. So is this grandma more sensitive, wiser at 65? Well, the answers appear to be on the front page of the Vanguard. Listen to this. Opposition leaders, others take Tinubu to task. The host of riders, Tinubu unmoved, uncaring amid hunger, bandit attacks. That's ascribed to former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Nigeria failing under APC. That's the LP presidential candidate, Mr. Obi. If the worst is over, why are Nigerians still dying? That's coming from the new bride, ADC. We're hungry for food, not statistics. Of course, that's coming from where the night vigils that you talked about should be happening, the Christian Association of Nigeria. And lastly here, Nigeria's future bleak under leaders with entitlement mentality, from the Anglican primate. Mr. Gwoke, over to you. Speak to these concerns.
Nobody can fault most of the statements from the different political parties and different, civil society organizations, and even from the religious groups. Anybody faulting that is either be hypocritical or just maybe an appointee of the government that defends anything, no matter how wrong it is. It is very clear that Nigerians, like the condition of the average Nigerian, is in a very dire strait. And instead of one of the problems I always find is why the government officials, instead of listening to feedbacks, feedback mechanism in every leadership structure is very, very important. Because communication, I'm a communication expert. I have my doctorate in communication, so I can lecture on communication. What we say is that some communication is cyclical. It is not linear. So you don't do top bottom and then expect everybody to swallow everything. So it's a cycle. So you push out your message, there's a medium you push out, you have an audience. The audience, you are expecting a feedback. And from the feedback is what you now use to reorganize in effective leadership and take action. But what we found now is that once you speak, you not tell me, oh, you don't have a right. They wash you down, they dress you down, they abuse you. That's not going to stop Nigerians from because they say he who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. So if somebody say, oh, my legs, my shoe is pinching, and I have issues with my leg, with my feet, I tell you, don't say it again. But it doesn't remove the pain. So the person will keep on saying it until finds a solution to it. And so it's so pedestrian that when people complain, you say, oh, you are opposition, or you don't like the president, or you don't, you are not a progressive. What is the definition of progressive? You don't just bring yourselves together and call yourself progressive because you want to use the cliche. Anybody can ascribe any cliche or adulation to himself. What we are saying is that all the statistics, all the numbers do not add up to economic reality on ground. So make it add up. Nigerians are very simple people, actually. We don't really need very sophisticated things. All we need is give us access to health, give us access to education, give us the roads, make agriculture very easy to embark on, employ people, bring back production, let there be employment, and then bring back these adverse rates that we're having, bring back the subsidy, because even Europe and all these big countries do subsidy. Instead of killing subsidy, clean up subsidy instead of removing it. So there's a lot of paradoxical economic policies going on. The government is not in a capitalist venture. The government is not capitalism. The government is not supposed to be in business. So they are overtaxing everybody, trying to run government as a business. It doesn't work that way. The work of government is to create the enabling environment for business, and that's what we should focus on. But that is not what this government is doing. Government is acting as a player in the capitalist economy, as if they are a company or a parastatal organization. They should work down on that and see how they can be more welfareist, because the Constitution says the primary responsibility of government is the welfare and the security of its citizens.
Well, Dr. Igboke, a lot of people have described the president as a tax collector. Yesterday, he took the moment of Independence Day to speak to that, saying that the new tax laws, not to increase the burden on people, but to widen the tax net, to widen the base for national growth. So that is still clearly the elephant in the room, and a lot of people are still unsure of what to expect come January the 1st next year, when those laws come into full swing. But let's take a look at New Telegraph newspaper quickly, Dr. Igboke. Yes, most of the dailies have advertorials on them, naturally, because it's the day after Independence Day. So in case you're wondering why it's a slimmer front page, it's a lot of advertorials. But the story that might catch your attention, perhaps, is either the PENGASSAN strike being suspended to resume without notice, or the Senate President to President saying, get ready to receive more opposition governors into the APC. Your choice, Dr. Igboke. Don't forget there's oil prices falling to 60 low as Nigerian crude price declines as well.
Well, the PENGASSAN Dangote crisis is something that is avoidable. But, in this country, we were always reactionary rather than being preventive. If these things were well planned, even NUPENG itself, I don't know why NUPENG was sleeping, or PENGASSAN and all these groups. You saw a refinery coming up. You saw a refinery kickstart. You knew where they were building the refinery. PENGASSAN would have at that stage engaged the management and said, look, see what the law says in this refinery you are setting up. This is where we want to come in. This is this. The refinery have started, all those things. You allowed them to employ people to work. And, so these unions should be able to have been proactive about these things instead of allow things to happen before they now react. It's a typical Nigerian thing. And also, the Constitution of Nigeria guarantees freedom of association. And there's nothing wrong with, your group belonging to unions. I mean, it's a fundamental right. But to now say they shouldn't belong to unions when, we have always known that unions work even in private sectors. If you go to the banking sector, insurance sector, if you go to even the oil and gas sector and the rest. But what some Nigerian schools of thought are saying that the unions have excesses. So these excesses, if there are, and I assume there are, should be challenged maybe in courts and in other mediation issues. But I think mediation failed. That is why even they went to strike and then they called off and suspended and all those things. This kind of thing is where you can employ mediation, negotiation, and conciliation. And when you do that, then we can avoid all this brouhaha that is happening. And I think Nigeria should also wake up about expatriate quota in employment, where a company just wakes up and wants to replace Nigerians with expatriates. Without it's actually a slap on our face, especially work that Nigeria can do. Most countries in the world don't do those kind of things, and you don't allow people just reduce your own citizens to second-class citizens. So Dangote has its own fault. Dangote refinery has a very serious problem in their hands, and they need to solve that. But without grandstanding, this same thing with PENGASSAN. They also need to look strictly into because there are some accusations that the Dangote refinery came up with that suggest that these things were not, that the PENGASSAN's action were not altruistic, that they were for personal gains. So those things have to be interrogated. And then we have to now, see where to find a common ground so that we don't have fuel scarcity. That's all Nigerians are concerned about. Every other thing, I think, is just between the union and the rep. And I don't know why PENGASSAN should even accept the fact that this staff should be posted out of the refinery. That means that they have been defeated, if that is the case. But unionism should be accepted, and people should not be pushed out for joining what they have rights of associations.
Well, Dr. Buke, very important points you made there. And yes, we'll be having the TUC president join us to speak to some of these issues from an insider's perspective. But we have to thank you so much. And let me just say happy birthday to you. I think it's not a coincidence that you share the same birthday with Nigeria. So happy birthday to you one more time, Dr. Ambrose Igboke, Chairman Guild of Public Affairs, Analyst of Nigeria, and Media Consultant. We appreciate your time on the program.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, so that's a look at the front pages for you this morning. But we're getting started with the youth angle to President Bola Tinubu's Independence Day broadcast yesterday. While he paid a lot of attention to the economy, about 35% of his speech was on the economy. The youths also got their own fair share of that speech yesterday, with a total of about 13% being allocated to them. So what in that speech will resonate with Nigerian youths? Well, we'll be having a panel of these youths joining us on the program today. By the way, it's been said that youth is not just age. If you're youth at heart, you're also welcome to this conversation. So that's where we're headed to next in a moment. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
I have a message for you, you young people. You are the future and the greatest asset of this blessed country. You must continue to dream big, innovate, and conquer more territories in your various fields of science, technology, sport, and arts and creative sector. Our administration, through policies and funding, we continue to give you wings to fly sky high. We created NEL Fund to support students with loans for their educational pursuits. Approximately 510,000 students across 32 states of the Federation, including FCT, have benefited from this initiative, covering 228 higher institutions. As of September 10, the total loan disbursed was 99.5 billion, while the upkeep allowance stood as 44.7 billion. Credit Corp, another initiative of our administration, has granted over 153,000 Nigerians 30 billion affordable loans for vehicles, solar energy, home upgrades, digital devices, and more. Youth credit, which I promised last June, is a reality, with tens of thousands of NYSC members now active beneficiaries of consumer credit for resettlement. Under our Renew Hope agenda, we promise to build a Nigeria where every young person, regardless of background, has an equitable opportunity to access a better future. Thus, the investment in digital and creative enterprise, IDICE program, the Bank of Industry, is driving the program in collaboration with the African Development Bank, the French Development Agency, and the Islamic Development Bank. This initiative is at the cusp of implementation. Our last 2 years, we have collaborated with our partners to launch the program, supporting our young builders and dreamers in the technology and creative sector.
Welcome back. And so President Bola Tinubu's Independence Day speech continues to elicit reactions, particularly with the positioning of that speech, particularly the achievement of the administration forming perhaps more than half of the speech. You know, many Nigerians are speaking to the positioning of the speech, particularly from the opposition. And of course, we heard you know, some of those concerns during the newspaper review. But what exactly do the youths feel about President Tinubu's Independence Day speech, particularly as it concerns them, when you consider that the president, you know, spoke directly to them with a bit too inspiring when you consider when he began to speak. And of course, he also backed it up with some of the actions that the president said his administration has taken, you know, to empower them. So let's have this conversation. And joining us on the program this morning, we have youth advocate for Nigeria, rather advocate for a new Nigeria, Mr. Peter Aka, who joins us from our Abuja studio. And we also have Elizabeth Agbiti Douglas. She's the project director, Nigeria Youth Futures Fund. They join us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, gentleman and lady. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So naturally, I'll start with you, Elizabeth. Ladies first. From some of the things that the president said yesterday, what resonated with most Nigerians was, you know, the beauty of the speech, but a disconnect with reality. But can you say the same for the deliberate actions, or what seems to be deliberate actions, that the administration has taken, indeed, to positively engage youth? And the president outlined them.
Thank you so much, Bukola, for that question. What I will start off saying, first of all, is that we do need to recognize and applaud the current administration. It's hard to deny that there are all these programs. There's a lot of funds from the government. You have NEL Fund. You have you know, the funds targeted at our service corps members, providing stipends. You have the loans for students in universities. And it's really hard, you know, and very difficult to argue that there's a lot of these programs that are coming out. And it is applaudable and laudable, certainly. However, what I will come out to say is you hear concerns around the process themselves, transparency around the process. So, for instance, the president has come out and told us emphatically that 510,000 students have benefited from 228 institutions across the country. And you are, I mean, in the work we do with youth here, hearing quite a few people saying, yeah, going on the platforms, you know, those who are technically savvy are going on the platforms to try and apply. They are encountering issues. They are seeing information that is already saying, for instance, that shortlisting is going on. There are those who have heard about the announcements but don't even know what the process is. And so, and I would say, as is always the case with Nigeria, the issue isn't necessarily the abundance or lack of programs, it's the process. Perceptions about transparency, questions about whether these opportunities really truly are open to everybody, are some of the kind of things that tend to plague them. But again, I will say it's hard to deny that, these programs, these opportunities are there, but the questions are really around whether they are equitably distributed. I'll make another point as well. Youth are not a monolith, right? So we've spoken about our young people in universities, who, by the way, are actually a considerable number of our young people. But we have young people who are in rural communities, not necessarily, going on to pursue post-secondary education. You have those who have not even had the opportunity to access education. And then there's another aspect of this to also consider, and I'm glad you talked about economics. There's also the aspect of political engagement, civic engagement, and governance. The Ministry of Youth, it is one of the thematic areas they are focusing on. But beyond the passing of the Not Too Young to Run Act quite a few years ago, when we begin to look at young people's engagement in governance, whether it's in political office or even, just as voices, as we are designing, we're thinking of solutions to problems in the country, there's still quite, there are some gaps there. And I can tell you for free, it's not because we don't have capable young Nigerians, we don't have passionate young Nigerians, we have young Nigerians that are apathetic. I can tell you for free that there are a lot of them who are passionate, have solutions, want to engage, and are still, struggling, finding it difficult to, have opportunities. And where they do try and push, they are viewed as troublemakers. Let me wrap up by just saying that, again, it was interesting. We said 15% of the speech was addressed to youth. But our young people, 70% of Nigerians are aged 40 years and under. Our average age is 21, which means that 50% of us are 21 years or younger. So, again, I think there's also a problem with our mindset as a country, where we see youth issues as separate from, the larger national agenda. If majority of Nigeria's people are youth and young people, then Nigerians' issues are youth issues, and youth issues are Nigerian issues. And I think there's a bit of a disconnect there that we need to try and fix.
Interesting points that you have rounded off with there, and I wonder if Peter has, a reaction to that. But in addition to that, Peter, President Tinubu is saying to you, you are the future of Nigeria. Continue to dream big. Do his programs and policies inspire you to dream big? Peter?
No, they do not. And I have had that statement for far too long, to continue to dream big. Thank you for having me. But let us state clearly that once Nigeria stops to glorify mediocre and incompetence in leadership, then we will begin to make progress. Because it is said that repeating the same action and expecting a different result is insanity. As a young person, when I see governance and the way political office holders conduct themselves, my belief is that Nigeria is being run by businessmen, political businessmen who see the country as cities, as customers for their personal trade, and not people who are necessarily viable for good leadership. Because it is unfortunate that 65 years after independence and 26 years after democracy, these are the same kinds of tales we hear. If the president is truly interested in laying or building a country that works for people, it is not about handing out cash or handing out bailouts or whatever to the youth. As my colleague rightly said, the issues of youth are the issues of Nigeria. Youth do not exist in a vacuum. We have families, we have mothers, we have siblings. The strength of every democratic nation is in the strength of its institutions. And we must move away from these plethora of talks about trying to lay a foundation for 65 years. How long does it take to lay a foundation and then we build on it? The strength is supposed to be the strength of our institutions. And when I look at the President Tinubu administration, two things come to mind, and I'll quickly tell you. Number one, the action of the president on the state of Rivers State. This is not talking about whether the declaration of a state of emergency was right or wrong, but I want to point out how the institutions are crumbling under this administration that claims to be helping the youth. The presidency woke up and suspended a duly elected governor and swore in a sole administrator before the National Assembly ratified. The National Assembly, that is supposed to be the hallmark of a democracy for checks and balances, decided to ratify with a voice vote and setting aside the necessary two-thirds majority that should have voted. And then the judiciary, that is supposed to be the last hope of the uncommon man, for 6 months was unable to sit and look at how legal or legitimate was the declaration. So across board, in a country that wants to produce a society viable for the youth, we are seeing executive, legislative, and judicial recklessness and irresponsibility. So for me, I think that it is more of talk and less of action. And secondly, the president talked about removing the corrupt oil subsidy. The problem with the subsidy regime in Nigeria that should have benefited the youth was not just subsidy, it was the corruption in the subsidy regime. Can President Tinubu come out and state clearly how much exactly have I saved from May 29, 2023 to today, October 2025? Imagine a British Prime Minister or a US President taking a serious reform as removal of subsidy, and the citizens do not know exactly how much was saved. So if you say fuel subsidy was corrupt and you took it out, and Nigerians do not know how much exactly was saved, where it is being reinvested to, how it is plugged into affecting the lives of the youth and other citizens, then it is decentralization of corruption. We should not be talking about increasing allocation to politicians or governors without accountability. So if there is no transparency and accountability in governance and a deliberate attempt to strengthen the institutions, what are the hopes of the youth or the young persons? The only way that President Tinubu can prove that he truly loves the youth is ensuring that we have an electoral process that is seamless, that is credible, where young people who have the character and the capacity can vie for positions without violence and without being, witch hunted, and get into the system to become the leaders of today, because the tomorrow we are talking about is today that we are talking. So I think it is mischievous to have good talks and then we see direct actions that undermine the integrity of our institutions and the capacity of citizens to live as decent human beings in a democracy.
I could walk through some of the points that the president made about, this administration giving wings or continue to give wings for the youth to fly, how youths are encouraged to, yes, Bukola said, dream big and all of that. But I think it's clear now that Nigeria's problem is youth problem. So we shouldn't maybe separate it. If it's the economy, he's talking about the youth because we're 70%. Again, there's always a lot of dispute about that percentage. If it's security, the youth are also at the receiving end, either on both sides of it. But let me go back to Dr. Agbiti Douglas and speak to what the young Nigerians, again, it's a very tricky one, or what Nigerians need right now. Because for the president, he reeled out a lot of the achievements of his government, how the economy has grown beyond even the projection, balance of trade, the naira to dollar stabilizing and all of that. Why does it seem as though he gives out a lot of things being done, but when people look at it, it's hard for them to pick what is really affecting me? So is it a disconnect between what is being done and what is expected in terms of what is demanded and what is supplied? Is it that people see these things and they choose to look away? What exactly is the issue here? Because I think time and again we've come to this point and we've glossed over it.
Ayo, that's a really great question. And interestingly, I think the president himself answered it when he gave the speech yesterday. He said that, and I'm paraphrasing loosely, that even though, there's been all this work, that they are trying to do, his administration is trying to do to strengthen and build the economy, ultimately, his administration is going to be judged by the quality of education, how safe, we feel as Nigerians, the food that we eat, what goes into our bellies. So, yes, work has been done, but the price of food is still really high. Cost of transportation is really high. Rent prices are really high. You know, so the truth of it is stuff may be given out, but it's not enough. It's not sufficient. And then it also brings me back to a point that we had earlier on about, you know, the president said all hands need to be on deck. But what does that look like in practice? When we were coming up with these solutions, when the administration was coming up with these solutions and developing the funds, was there a co-creation process? Did they sit down with, you know, young Nigerians, with civil society, when they crafted and designed these solutions? Or did we sit down? Because again, as a country, and you know, all of us do this. We sit in our corners, we think about what we think is good for Nigeria. And on paper, we may not be wrong, but we're a complex country. There are all these nuances. And at the end of the day, government is there to serve its citizens. So you may come up with great policies that are great on paper, but if your citizens don't feel a sense of ownership or involvement, or feel that it connects with the concerns they actually have, you know, it will be DOA, right? So 510,000 young Nigerians are benefiting from support in schools. But you're talking of 510,000 young people compared to, again, like you said, even if we want to debate the percentage, we'll still use that 70%. 70% of a projected 200 to 234 million people is a huge number, and 510 only begins to scratch the surface. And even of that 510, there's already murmurings and, you know, complaints and concerns about the process and how that is being distributed. So again, what I will say is, as a country, really, truly, if we do want to get it right, the way we develop policies, the way we implement them, has to be inclusive. And I think, again, it goes back to that point of all hands being on deck. All hands being on deck doesn't just mean that we have some of us sat at one level making decisions solely. It does mean that when it comes to decision making, coming up with solutions, all voices, all perspectives need to be at the table and need to be factored into how we design and then eventually go on to implement our solutions. Nigeria's problem is not in coming up with solutions. It's usually, you know, how they are crafted and then ultimately the sustaining and implementing them in the long run. So, I mean, I'll end my response here.
So, you made a significant point earlier that got me thinking that if, you know, the predominant issues of Nigeria are youth issues, being, you know, the predominant number of the population, then why are Nigerian youths not showing up as they ought to in the political space? Because when you consider that the crop of leaders that have ruled in the past rose to national prominence in their 30s or in their 40s. So is it a challenge of not showing up, or is it that the political space is limiting for Nigerian youths? Peter, I'd like you to take that.
Thank you very much. I think the answer is obvious. You know, President Tinubu praises himself as one of the supporters of the June 12th mandate, the MKO Abiola, you know, struggle, which of course was premised around free and fair elections. And today the system has become, 30 years later, we cannot have leaders who will come out and commit to a process that will be free, fair, credible, and peaceful. Do you know that in 2023, in the home state of the president, and this is on record and reported, citizens were physically beaten out of polling units in Lagos State for looking like a certain tribe. And if that is not an issue to political actors and leaders, then there is high-level mischief. It is not about the youth not wanting to be a part of it. It is a deliberate attempt at making the process become so violent and become so difficult that not only the youth, even persons of decent character and integrity will rather stay away. And that is why you hear the usual slogan, politics is a dirty game. Today, women are struggling to have, compensated seats in the Senate or in the parliament. Why? Because they believe that the process has become too rigorous for people who are non-violent or want to maintain a peaceful disposition to sail through. If you look at the entertainment sector, for example, where the youths took charge of that industry and have made a fortune out of something that was almost nothing without little or no support from the government. It then means that given the opportunity, Nigerian youth have proven to be ingenious and enterprising and ready to take every opportunity. But then you see a government that sets a not too young to run bill into place, and then the cost of the nomination form is about 100 million. So you are not too young to run, but you are also too poor to run. So across boards, it is not a matter of just paying lip service to these issues. If President Tinubu is interested in the welfare of the youth, no population will grow by handing out handouts. Since from presidents before Tinubu, even the Buhari administration, we had a Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Hajia Umaru Sadiq. They said we were doing conditional cash transfers. How much and how many persons were pulled out of poverty? The Minister of Finance recently made a pronunciation that almost 400 billion have been distributed to about 30 million Nigerians. And my dear sister and my brother in the studio, how many persons do you know that benefited, or have you received your own share of that? Nigerians will not move forward through handouts. It is through policies that are going to enable persons of integrity and character to get into the system. And that is what Nigerians must insist on. Because as it is today, the National Assembly that should carry out checks and balances have become almost an extension of the presidency. It is the APC town hall where the president is greeted with his political mantra. The judiciary has proven that it has become the last hope of the uncommon man. So it is up to Nigerians to come together, mobilize, and insist that the right thing be done, and we, the youth, will not be waiting to be given the opportunity, but take up the leadership and insert ourselves into the equation.
And indeed, the engagement has begun here, but hopefully it continues beyond this platform to other platforms, such that the voices of Nigerian youths can be heard. But we must anchor this particular engagement now, and thank you, Elizabeth Agbiti Douglas, Project Director, Nigeria Youth Futures Fund, and of course, Peter Aka, Advocate for a New Nigeria. Thank you, gentleman and lady, for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And from here, we'll take a break. When we return, we'll seek to understand the issues between PENGASSAN and Dangote Petrochemical Refinery. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Well, let's talk about, well, an impending crisis that has been averted, albeit temporarily, in the oil and gas industry. Dangote refineries versus PENGASSAN. The daggers were drawn. But very early yesterday morning, we got that statement from the Ministry of Labour saying, well, the parties have agreed to suspend issues and sort of reconcile. But when you look at the details of the agreement, more questions arise. And we're joined on the program this morning by PENGASSAN President and, of course, TUC President, Comrade Festus Osifo, to really walk us through the behind the scenes and what to expect in the future. Good morning, Comrade. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kayode. Good morning, Kayode. Good morning, Bukola. Good morning to viewers. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. A lot of people may have missed that communique yesterday, or the statement by the ministry yesterday, but it was a very important one. You have spoken about the agreement, saying you agreed to suspend the action, but there are gray areas on the one hand, and you will not give notice next time if you're going to take action. I wonder for you what you have to say first to people who say it looks like PENGASSAN is holding the shorter end of a stick now, because they expected a win-win solution, but it looks like one party won more than the other, because if those workers are going to be reabsorbed, but not to the refinery, but to other areas, isn't that a loss? How do you speak to that, and what, well, made you accept that offer, Comrade?
Yes, Kayode, you know, first, if you see that agreement, we did not sign the agreement. Normally, it was supposed to be signed by us and, 3 parties. We did not sign it because we felt that some things in that agreement we're not quite okay with. So it wasn't really an agreement per se, but it was a communication issue by the Chief Conciliator of the Federation, that is the Minister of Labor and Employment. But when we subjected it to our neck, we looked at it, Kayode, it depends on what we are prioritizing. You know, some of the media houses, but not channels, you know, they were out there that, oh, the only thing we are interested in was our checkup deals. But we said no. What we are interested in is the livelihood of these people. That what we are interested in is actually how our members will go back to work and be able to take care of their family. Kayode, we prioritize that over anything else. But on the table, that was not our position. Our position was very clear. Take the people back to work. Take them to the refinery. Then Dangote's position was that he wasn't going to take them. I mean, that he wasn't going to take them back at all. So that was his own position. So we had two diverse positions, but the Chief Conciliator of the Federation now came with the other government functionary. So they now did this as a middle way. So it was actually government that came up with this. Not that Dangote on its own at the beginning also agreed with this point. No. We had our extreme position, they had their extreme position, but government now came in and said, okay, this is what we think would work. So when we subjected this to our neck prioritized first the livelihood and the sustenance of these people above anything else, to demonstrate to the world that it wasn't about checkup deals, to demonstrate to the world two things. One, Kayode, which is key. The very first thing is that we needed to send a signal that what Dangote, the release that Dangote did was totally not correct. To say these people have sabotaged the process. In fact, in the meeting, there were a lot of words, there were a lot of unprinted words that they called our members. But we've been able to put that to rest. Because if we had allowed that sabotage to stand, what it means is that these 800 plus people, they can't even look for a job anywhere tomorrow. That toga of saboteur will remain with them forever. So that has been cleared. So for us, that is a very big win. Because young engineers who just left university yesterday, you are calling them saboteurs. Some of them are 25, 30 years old. Then they have like 30 years more to work. So first of all, we are able to dispense with that. Then secondly, restoring back their job because we are prioritizing their families over anything else. Like I said, in the meeting, we had our position. That was why we did not sign the communique. But when we got to the next, when we reviewed it after the meeting, we felt, okay, let's prioritize the family first before anything else. So that was actually why the NEC said, let us respect federal government, because there was other conversations that went on behind the scene that was not also captured in the communique. There were promises that were made to us by the government because they were seriously under pressure. So when they made those promises to us and they appealed, so on our part, we needed to take the moral high ground. As long as we did not fully agree with the content of the communique, but we wanted to take that moral high ground to prove to Nigerians that PENGASSAN is an extremely patriotic association and that we are prioritizing the lives, the sustenance of our members than anything else.
It's been said, pardon me, that you cannot force an employee on an employer, no matter what. If an employer said, I don't want you again, it's futile to say, no, take him back, take her back, because it's going to end up in tears. So are you confident that this will work? Because there are fears that, first off, they didn't take them back into the refinery, they're putting them elsewhere. It's probably a process to just ease them out silently. Are you confident that this will stand?
Kayode, PENGASSAN has been around before Dangote Industries were founded. We have been around for close to 50 years now. So for us, we are not perturbed in any way. If it was a deceit, we are still here. Our tools are still available, Kayode. Our tools of negotiation, our tools of discussion, and our tools to take it to the maximum level. We are fully here. And we also informed them during that meeting, that was why those assurances came. The instrument of state they said that they will force the system to do what is right, that we will do what is right, and that they will also force him to do what is right. We had those assurances from the highest level. So, Kayode, we are not government, right? So when government also give us assurances, when they also speak, we also need to give them some benefit of the doubt. Do we have our suspicion? The answer is yes. Do we truly believe that he's going to go ahead to do what is right? The answer is no, because they have serious history of breaking agreements and of not following the rule of law or doing what is right. We know all these. We know all these. We are not oblivious of these at all. But having said that, when you have strong appeal from the government of the land, when you have strong push and strong conversations and promises to say, don't worry, we will ensure that XYZ will be done. And we told them that no problem. We will listen to, after the NEC meeting yesterday, we also reached out to them that, okay, the NEC has decided to do this, but we are giving the benefit of the doubt. We are not giving Dangote that benefit of the doubt. It is you, government. We are giving benefit of the doubt. And you must ready on Dangote to do the needful. If it doesn't do the needful, our tool is purely available. We've been around for close to 50 years, so we'll never get tired of struggling and pushing for what is right. So for us, it's a situation whereby we prioritize the lives of the families, not that we are confident that they are, he's going to implement it 100%, but we put the lives of the families first to say, okay, go back to work first. No problem. In fact, they even told us that some of them, they will send them to some of the areas where we have traditional scope. We don't have problem about that. So anyhow you do it, we are following, we will monitor the process. And whenever we see that the workers are being shortchanged, because it's not about PENGASSAN. It is about the workers. It is about the Nigerians that were abruptly terminated because they were exercising their freedom to association. I was listening to your guest earlier that said that PENGASSAN would have approached Dangote earlier. I said no. Again, it's also the information out there. First, there was a meeting between the top leadership of Dangote Refinery with NUPENG and PENGASSAN close to about 2-3 years ago. We had a meeting where assurances and all that were given. So we started following up earlier. We were extremely proactive. So it's not that we waited till today before having those conversations. No, we had the conversations earlier. But unfortunately, when the people decided to exercise their right, this was what now happened to them.
All right. On the matter of patriotism, you have said that this is not about PENGASSAN, but it's about the right of the Nigerian workers. I'm just wondering if you'd be willing to make the books of PENGASSAN and NUPENG open such that we can truly confirm that this is not about check-off dues.
Bukola, check-off dues, it's a percentage of what people earn, Bukola. Bukola, when you say make the book open to know about check-off dues, I don't really understand. PENGASSAN is funded by check-off dues, so there is no ambiguity about that. Bukola, when you belong to your village association, you pay dues to your village association. So no pretense about that whatsoever. But I wish to state, which I also said in the press conference yesterday, Bukola, the 800 members that are sacked in Dangote, we did an analysis. The total pay of those 800 members that are sacked in Dangote is less than only 20 members in an IOC, the salary. In IOC, we have tens and tens and tens of thousands of members. Only 20 of our members in IOC average pay. Their pay is bigger or higher than the 800 members in Dangote that was terminated. So what are we talking about? Check-off dues is a percentage of what you earn. These people, their earning is ridiculously abysmal. So if we are talking about check-off dues, Bukola, why would we agree? We will say no, they must come to PENGASSAN. We will say if we are not prioritizing their families, we would have insisted that no way, that you must bring them back to refinery so that all of them will be under the purview of PENGASSAN. We would have insisted. So it is not about check-off dues, Bukola. It is what PENGASSAN has done over the years is improving lives in Nigeria, is improving families in Nigeria, is improving the life of workers. There is no company that PENGASSAN has existed till date that has not touched the life of the workers in those companies. The earnings in the oil and gas industry today is not by accident. The fact that Nigerians want to work in the oil and gas industry, when you finish university, the first thing you think about is how do I get a job in the oil and gas industry? It's because of the work that PENGASSAN has done over the years, Bukola. And that is why the earning is where it is today. It's not because the capitalist intends to pay well. It's not because the capitalists love the workers much more than their profit. No, it is actually because of the fact that PENGASSAN has worked closely with management and has prioritized the company and also the welfare of its members that has actually situated the pay of the oil and gas where it is today. So the people came to PENGASSAN because they wanted to better their lives. Like as I have said, the 800 members there, their average pay add together is less than just 20 members working an IOC in Nigeria. So what are we talking about? So it's not about check-up dues, but it's about the welfare of the people there. Bukola, you need to speak to people that are working in that refinery. They will tell you how they've been badly treated over the years.
All right. I would also like to see the books, Mr. Osifo, because Dangote has, spoken quite highly about the remuneration of his workers in different fora. But I'd like you to also speak to your agitation, which is the preservation of the right of the workers to unionize. But Alhaji Dangote has said, or the statement put out by the company, has used a strong word accusing these staff of sabotage. Some people are saying that if you go to private banks, they do not unionize. If you go to private medical institutions, unionism is not allowed. And Dangote is a private concern. What do international labor laws say about compelling a private employer to allow its workers unionize?
Thank you so much, Bukola, for that question. Before I answer that question, I think I missed one of the questions that Kayode asked about if you're forcing or willing employer forcing the employees on the willing employer. First, yes, you have the right to hire, but to fire, there are processes. You won't just come in today, hire someone, then tomorrow you didn't follow the laid down rules and processes to fire the person. We have the Trade Union Act, we have the labor laws, we have our constitution. So the process of firing is very, very clear. Kayode, those people were hired by giving them individual letters, right? You gave them individual letter, you gave them the condition of service, but you now came and you have
Oh dear, we hope that the network would improve such that Mr. Osifo can provide clarity on these very gray areas. He's back now. Mr. Osifo, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I think the network is a bit unstable. So first, you have the right to fire, but to hire. You have the right to hire. But to fire, there are processes you must follow according to the rules and according to the laws. It's just like redundancy. If a company is declaring redundancy, there are processes you must pass through in order to achieve that redundancy. That's that. Then coming back to Bukola's question. What was the question again, Bukola?
What do international labor laws say about compelling an employer to allow its workers to unionize?
Yes, to allow unionization. Bukola, PENGASSAN exists in about 160 companies today. In the 160 companies today, Bukola, I can confidently tell you that less than 10 are government institutions. That means over 90% of the companies that PENGASSAN exists today are actually private sector. I have worked in private sector all my life. I have never worked in government. I have worked in the upstream sector of the petroleum and gas industry for the last 20 years plus. So clearly, that is number one. Then number two, Bukola, the law did not discriminate. The law protects the employers. First, our constitution defines the right. Our constitution defines the right and freedom of association, number one, section 40. Bukola, also the Trade Union Act also defines that an employee has the right of unionism and also has the right to collective bargaining agreement. It did not discriminate between the private sector and the public sector. That is why PENGASSAN is in over 150 private organizations or private companies today. Chevron is private, Shell is private, ExxonMobil is private, Total Energies, both upstream and downstream, they are all in PENGASSAN, they are private. ExxonMobil, upstream, downstream, in PENGASSAN, before they sold to Double One, they are private. I could go on and on. So the law did not discriminate. The ILO convention never discriminates between, in fact, the people that even need unionism more, the people that need that right to collective bargaining agreement much more, it's even people working in the private organization. People working in private companies, they even needed that much more than those even working in the government establishment. So PENGASSAN, we are existing in about 150 private organizations in Nigeria, including the company where I work. So it is not about that. The law protects them 100%. The law is on the side of the employees 100%.
Well, comrade, let's wind down on this point. I must say that clearly trust needs to be built between both parties, because it looks like there's a major breakdown of trust. Looks like you don't trust Dangote Refinery to keep to its word. They don't also trust you, and if there's going to be any relationship that will thrive, trust is important. Secondly, you've also claimed that the remuneration package, which is a very important point, of the 800 plus people that were terminated is low compared to, you said 20 people. The dues that 20 people pay in PENGASSAN is more than the dues that 800 people plus pay. So that's a major one, and it's important to get clarity also from Dangote Refinery. But here's the final point, comrade. There are those who see PENGASSAN, the unions, as a clog in the wheel, and they look back to the previous experience under Nigeria's refineries, whether Port Harcourt and others, and they say, well, we see how these refineries ended. And we see you also as a major party in that. So how about you allow Dangote Refinery operate? Let it do its thing. Let it supply petrol to Nigerians without the queues and perennial problems. And let's all have a happy ending in that sense. What do you say to those people who see you as a clog in the wheel?
Kayode, PENGASSAN has existed in Shell for over 40 years. Shell has invested over $200 billion in Nigeria. PENGASSAN has existed in Total Energies, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and all these private companies in the last 40 years. And each of these companies have invested close to $200 billion in the Nigeria economy. PENGASSAN did not kill these companies. Instead, PENGASSAN partnered with them. When these companies came to Nigeria, their investment was somewhere around maybe $20–30 billion. But the workers partner with them. Kayode, I think the press, you should also dissect, the oil and gas workers in Nigeria, Kayode, the oil companies, they literally go for the best. I said it in one of your sister's program, that if you go to Shell alone, you are going to have close to 200 first class graduates, both Nigeria and abroad. They are members of PENGASSAN. If you come to Total Energies alone, you are going to have similar numbers of first-class distinction holders. They belong to PENGASSAN. So we are an association that are made up of intellectuals. So we are not just those kind of association that you think that are made up of people who does not have the requisite skills. So we have supported organizations to grow, Kayode. We have done that. So today, these companies, they've grown from tens of billions of dollars to hundreds of billions of dollars. The geologists, the engineers, the accountants, the lawyers, the medical doctors that work in this organization largely are members of PENGASSAN. So we have supported businesses to grow. So if we have supported Shell over the last 45 years, if we have supported Total Energies, if we have supported Halliburton, if we have supported Baker Hughes to grow their balance sheet, to ensure that the company survives, because we know very well that the company must survive before our our members' welfare will be taken care of. If the company died, our members' welfare will not be taken care of. Then coming to the refineries, Kayode, I've said this over and over again. The decision makers in the refineries are not PENGASSAN members, all right? So let me ask you a question. PENGASSAN members, we don't earn LNG. NLNG has been returning dividend to federal government year in, year out.
Okay.
They have been making stupendous profit year in, year out, and it's still a growing concern.
All right.
Because NLNG is largely a mix between the private sector and the government. And PENGASSAN, in the last 15 years plus, go and check the archive. We have advocated that government should exit this system of managing our refineries and should imbibe the NLNG model, whereby you have a consortium of the private sector having minimum of 50+1%, so that they will take the majority shareholding and government will move to minority.
Comrade, we have to anchor at this point. But clearly, this is never the end of a conversation. But I'm glad that at least things look better than they were just a few days ago. Nigerians can rest easy. They don't have to panic buy anymore, because I was beginning to see queues in filling stations. So we really hope that the trust is built. We hope that this means well eventually for the industry, and we're able to balance the powers. But Comrade, we have to thank you so much for your time. Comrade Festus Osifo wears two hats, I must say, the TUC hat and the PENGASSAN hat. I don't know how you juggle it, but we wish you the very best in this endeavor, Comrade Festus Osifo.
Thank you so much, Kayode. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Bukola. Yeah.
We're barely scratching the surface with that one. The conversation continues, but we can tell you for sure that is PENGASSAN's position. The ball is in not just PENGASSAN's court, but in Dangote Refinery's court, to ensure that the right things are done for the industry. But we'll switch gears now to an issue in Lagos right here, and Bukola takes this one.
Yes, indeed, Kayode. Mr. Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, describes the demolition of structures at the Trade Fair complex as a test of impunity, justice and compassion. But the Lagos State government says no, that Mr. Obi is only trying to whip up sentiment in order to misinform the public. But enterprise is at the heart of this matter, and that's why we're delving into this conversation. And joining us now is the Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development here in Lagos State, Mr. Olumide Oluyinka. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning.
Now, the traders, we cannot ignore some of the concerns that they have raised. Some of them have said, my structures were demolished right before my foreign partners. Some of them said I lost everything in one day, and the Lagos State government did not issue notice. Why didn't the government issue notices to the traders before the demolitions were carried out?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning to our dear Lagosians. That submission for me is not correct, because I led a team to that place March of 2024, and the whole idea was to sensitize them about the importance and need for them to get their approvals for the various developments. And that day, as we were about finishing, it almost turned to a chaotic situation, so we moved back. And we've been sending officers to that place, and we have on record that officers are arrested and locked up to as much as 5-6 hours, and we have to get them out through the police. The records are there. And the last one that happened, there was an invitation to the executive director, which she claimed that it didn't get to her. So the whole purpose is that it's not new to them that we are coming. And in actual fact, some of them have been coming. The guy that said that the building was touched has been to our office with the drawings. He's been advised on what to do. But the simple fact is that we all must just keep by the law. That's the simple fact there. We have authority there that the buildings there must be approved. And we went there that day, we met with the executive director. The resolution that day was that all development under construction should stop immediately, and they should avail us their layout approval and the individual approvals of those buildings from the Lagos State Planning Office.
So, speaking of approvals, some of the commentary trailing this is that the Trade Fair complex is on federal land and is being regulated by the Federal Housing Development Authority. Now, where is the conflict of interest here in terms of what the Land Use Act or the Physical Planning laws say? And why has this not been resolved over the years? Because the trade fair complex is as old as the 1970s.
Well, the management of the complex is under the Ministry of Trade and Commerce. It's not housing. Now, when you have a federal government land in Lagos, there's no dispute as regards the ownership. We're not talking about the ownership. What we are talking about is, as stipulated by the law, is physical development of structures on that place. And what we have seen in that place, you have a situation whereby the management is now leasing out to a third party, private individuals who marshal their own team of consultants and contractor, and started the development without recourse to the due process of the law. And you can see very clearly, because we were there that day, we showed them there's no meaningful, reasonable layout. That's the starting point before you even talk of approval. You have a 3-story building, 2 feet away from the road curb, such that when you even open the door of those shops, they will swing over onto the road. I mean, you want to tell me that an architect, a serial architect, did that design? That can't be possible. We've seen cases there where you have, in fact, in that video, His Excellency Governor Peter Obi, where the stool is just about 2 meters from the drainage, and they have paved that place. Now, imagine if that drain is to be cleared. You go in with a swan buggy. Where will the swan buggy dump the refuse? The trucks that will come to collect those refuse, where will they pass? I mean, these are simple law. It's a shame that we allow our trade fair complex to get to that extent. We explain all this to the ED of that place. No drainage, no walkway, no sewage treatment, no water scheme. Everything is totally shambles. I mean, they should even be happy that we are there to sanitize it, because that's our responsibility and we cannot allow it.
So what is the issue exactly? Because you've said a couple of things. So I want us to be able to differentiate what the issues are. Is the issue that they did not regularize their plans, approval, and all of that, or that they are building wrongly? Which one is the issue here?
Both, but the starting point is that you don't have, because that's the authority. And once you don't have that, for sure you are going to file the law. Because when you said you visited last year, you went to tell them, you went to sensitize them that, you know what, you should get approval for this thing. Yes. So it wasn't really about building wrongly, it was more about approval. Of course. So why not just say, you know what, we give you some more time? Because for a lot of these people, they invested millions, billions into all of that. And whether or not it's government, it's still investment that would serve Lagos one way or the other. They'll pay taxes, they'll provide jobs and all of that, get more investment in. So why wasn't that the approach? Give them time, regularize it, and then we'll move on. I just told you that I led a team there last year, 2024, around March. And between March and now, that's over a year and a half. But they said they didn't get any sort of... I said I led the team there. I met with there was almost confrontation with the ED that particular day. So that's an evidence that we were there. Them notices that we were there. And we sent officers in that district, they go to that place to serve them notices that, please, this thing is wrong, come and rectify it. And those officers were locked up for as much as 5-6 hours that we have to go there with police to get them out. So what more notice are you requesting for? That was last year. That no. Up till this year, officers went there and they were detained. But you said the notice that was served them was that they're building wrong, that they should come and regularize. Yes. What they're saying is notices should have been served on them to let them know that their structures were going to be demolished. Was that done in clear terms, such that at least psychologically they could have been prepared? That was served. When was that served? Maybe around June. June 2025. What you need to imagine is that if we try to go there and tell them that this thing you are doing is wrong, please come and do it rightly, and they are prevented. Now, if you now go and you are serving that we are coming to do this, how do you think they will react? How do you think they will react? Well, if for ordinary notification of, please, what you are doing is wrong, please come and rectify, they were detained. If they now go to say, I'm putting a paper that we are coming to touch this video, how do you think they will behave?
Well, Commissioner, so you've talked about your own process. They have been speaking about their own business. But the imaging, the messaging that this is sending for a lot of people is that Lagos State is against Igbo business people. And they've said this time and again. So seeing this destruction, for some of those people who were not sure where to stand, they're like, okay, maybe this is true after all. So what do you say to those people who say there is an obvious victimization of Igbo business people in Lagos State?
That is not true. That is not true to my knowledge. We've been to Owode Oneri, that's an area with the Southwest Brothers. We've been to Idumota. We've been to Ikeja area. For me, there is nothing, it has no ethnic coloration there. The fact is that we just have to do our work. Because there is nothing that has to do with ethnic problem here. It's purely technical.
But the concerns have also been expressed about Igbo businesses in Alaba international market as well.
That is not true. That is not true again. There is always communication, there is always discussion, there is always dialogue. But these people will refuse and until force is applied.
Let me read a statement from Mr. Peter Obi.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware that he visited with some leaders from Southeast. I'm talking national leaders, senators and the rest. And this is the statement he put out. The Lagos Trade Fair demolition, a test of impunity, justice, and compassion. In fact, he commended the traders for their remarkable restraint and calm in the face of such painful loss, which is different from what you said, that some of these traders arrest your operatives and keep them in detention. He went on to say that I urge government at all levels to act with compassion, fairness, and a deep sense of justice, especially at the difficult times. Many of the affected traders invested heavily. And his last paragraph says, a society that seeks to make progress must protect enterprise, encourage productivity, and defend the dignity of citizens. He says this is a test of impunity, fairness, justice, and compassion. What do you have to say to that?
A couple of months ago, there was a demolition by the Abia State government in Abia State. Early this year, there was demolition in Kaduna State. There was also demolition in Enugu State. Why should Lagos case be different?
Do you think he's overstepping his boundary by making such visit and statements?
He's an elder statesman, and he has his right to his own comment, to express his own comment. But the fact is that we went there that day, we addressed the press after the meeting with the ED. They can go back to that clip. The facts are all clearly stated there.
Just before we exit that particular talking point, I'm concerned, and I'm wondering if the Lagos State government will hold forums with, the Igbo business community in Lagos, just to reassure that they're not targeted. Just earlier on the show, one of our guests recalled events in 2023 when people who looked like they're from a certain tribe were targeted, during the elections in Lagos State. And, this appears as if it's not going away. And those who have business interests in Lagos and are from a particular tribe, they're feeling concerned. And we can also refer to other recent events. So is the Lagos State government concerned about that part of the conversation that seems to be shaping the ongoing demolition at the trade fair complex?
This is Nigeria. It belongs to every one of us. You go to the toll gate there and see the influx of people. In Nigeria, we are free to move anywhere and do whatever businesses we want to do. That is clean and clear. There is no dispute regarding that. What we are saying is that you should do your business or live in those places according to the law of those lands. Very simple. And like you rightly said, we have a stakeholder forum that we normally have with people. But in this case, if we are if we are restricted, how are we going to enforce it? I told you that I led the team there myself, and after that, officers went there severally. So how do you even call them for a meeting?
So some have said that when it comes to demolition, there's no challenge of capacity for the Lagos state government. In September alone, there are reports that at least 15 buildings were demolished in Iyanowuru. And then we're having this round of demolition at the Trade Fair complex. So I'd like you to respond to those people who say that where there are serious issues of physical infrastructure defect, particularly on the island, we do not see officials of the Lagos State Building Control Agency rise to the occasion to do their jobs, that in fact some of the time they're compromised. What do you say to them when they say we see the zeal when it comes to demolitions, and that the state government has more interest about occupation of these lands or maybe the revenue that is coming from these areas?
That is not true. There has been a series of enforcement carried out on the Lagos Island. I have personally led 3 different enforcement that even the palace of a chief in Lagos was touched. I led the team there. A white cap chief in Lagos. I led the team there. So I think we should do away with this ethnic coloration that we're trying to put into this thing. This is Nigeria for every one of us. The facts are clear. When you are in a place, you have to live by the laws of that particular place. It's as simple as that.
I think a lot of people would be watching to see how this is then handled, because it has a potential to spiral into something even much uglier. But let's talk about the bigger picture.
The particular building you mentioned, the owner of that building has been to my office.
Right.
I've held meeting with him.
So that has been resolved?
Of course, the process is on. He's already coming up with all his drawings. So, I mean, there is no problem on this thing if things are done properly.
So let's tie this to the bigger picture, you know, of, you know, the urban planning, physical development here in Lagos State.
Yes.
There are a lot of people who will tell you, and I've been speaking with them, will tell you that it's a headache. It's a lot of headache trying to just go through the process. First, they say, can't we have this done online? You apply online, you get the approval online. It's quick, it's fast, it's seamless. No interface with anybody that says, pay money. That's one. 2, when it's time to enforce, they just come to the facility, lock it up with you know, the special padlocks that you have. And then when it's time to, you have to go to the office. You pay people. They tell you, bring money for this, bring money for that, bring money to reopen. All of this not paid to government. People sit down in their offices and collect these monies. And I'm sure you're probably aware of that because I have this on good authority. Why can't we do this digitally? There are other African countries that all you do is apply online. If there's any issue, you get notification, you submit more documents, and the process is seamless. In fact,
it's not as simple as you are saying it. E-system, fine, perfect, beautiful. But it's on the basis that people are ready to disclose correct facts. Now, you have it, about a month ago, we rolled out about 176 estates as illegal. People shouted and screamed and screamed. Up to today, nobody has faulted us. The facts are there. They are there. Now, somebody applied because for all those estates, we grant layout approval before you even proceed into individual buildings. And approval is granted, provisional approval, that you are building 30 units. You are supposed to have your infrastructures in place, and those infrastructures are not done. And instead of 30 approved, you now build 40. The e-system you are talking about is on the premise of disclosing facts. Now, your land is 700 square meters. And we are submitting a dummy survey of 900 square meters. I mean, it can't work that way.
So is that why
now,
they ask for money?
Regarding our officers, this is a country with super laws. Anybody that is aggrieved, we have the appeals committee there that you can report anybody.
So should they collect money to reopen, all this money to reopen your
no, that is where I'm going. That is, there are ways to detect fraud or anybody fraudulent activities. The police are there, the DSS are there, the SS are there that you can report. It can be traced. If there are any officer that is playing hanky-panky, they can all be traced. Once you are served, There are processes of this service. The first thing is they will start, please, we are at this site, there is no evidence of approval for this development. Now, that is one. The other might be that, okay, you have not done this development in line with the approval granted. Now, people now come. If we have a situation like that, the next thing should be that if it's escalated up, all those contraventions should be prim off. But the same people now be wanting to come in and be lobbying officers. Now, if somebody is cheating, if somebody is cheating you, the laws are very clear. You can make a report. It can be investigated if you're on your right.
But they shouldn't collect money from people.
Of course, they shouldn't collect money.
And if anybody has can they report to your office?
Come again?
Can they report to your office if anybody?
Of course.
And punitive
we
action.
have an appeals committee set up by the government. We've had cases where people have complained and we've been found wanting. Yes. The same thing, this one, if anybody feel like, if you can approach the appeal committee and lodge your complaint, and they will call us, it will be investigated, and true position will be granted to you, whichever party.
And we hope that the appeals committee is independent. Lastly,
of course.
And this is important. Is there an agreement now amongst traders at the trade fair complex between them and the Lagos State government that the Lagos State government is the go-to authority in terms of regulation of development of structures in that community, and they do not necessarily have to deal with the Ministry of Commerce and Industry anymore at the federal level?
There has not been a conclusive position on that. But the resolution that day was that, one, all current development should stop. And they should give us the evidence of the approval of the existing one, which is the starting point, in this case, the layouts, then in the individual permit. The ED agreed partially, disagreed somehow, but the conclusion was that, okay, they are going to get back to their own authority and clarify that. However, individual developers have been approaching us with a request for their permit. But the thing is that approval cannot be granted if there is no layout. It is the layout that says, okay, this is where the building should be. So we need to see the layout, the approved layout of that particular area. And what has happened is that, you know, trade fair is quite big. There is the initial one built by the government then you have this remaining space. The management are supposed to operate on the existing structure. But what we found is that the other areas have been leased out to individual private people who are now wanting to start development. And that is in the purview of the state authority to grant the layout and individual approval of those buildings.
So many gray areas, and you know, I'm glad we had this conversation. It shows that there must be continuous engagement among all parties concerned. We must thank you very much for taking out time to enlighten us on the issues. We've been talking with Mr. Olumide Otuyinka, the Commissioner for Physical Planning here in Lagos State. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
And there are more issues to be resolved. This time we'll head over to Kogi State and check up on updates, you know, following that boat mishap in which a number of people are reported to have died. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Well, the people of Kogi State are mourning the death of victims of a boat accident which occurred on River Niger. Traders, over 20 of them were traveling from Ibaji local government area of a state to Ilushi Market in Edo State on the evening of September the 30th. Sadly, the boat had issues and it sank. We're joined on the program this morning from the location of the boat mishap by the Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Security, Kogi State, who is very aware and witnessed the situation. Mr. Timothy Ojoma joins us live on the program this morning. You're welcome to the program, Commissioner.
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
We know that you're very close to the scene of the incident. First, let's get to the the updates on the death toll. Has there been any more bodies recovered? What more do we know about this mishap?
Yes, thank you so much. And I want to start by appreciating the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for his show of love. He sent his condolences to the people of Kogi State, especially to His Excellency, and assuring the people of Kogi State, particularly Baji, that his mind and thoughts are with them, and whatever is necessary to do to bring succor and ensure that this ugly incident never happened again. And I equally want to appreciate His Excellency Alhaji Ahmed Usman Ododo, the servant leader, Governor of Kogi State, whose promptness in responding to this ugly incident was unprecedented. Immediately it happened on the 30th of September. Our people ordinarily woke up and they were excited that they were going to celebrate another anniversary, 65 years of independence of Nigeria. And this is a flood season. They joined boats as usual, and we're trying to get to Ilushi Market in Edo State to sell their food products and at the same time buy some items for the celebration. Unfortunately, in the middle of the river, the boat had issue. The boat simply broke, and about 80 occupants, 182 occupants in that boat had to be scrambling for survival. And I want to equally use this medium. As soon as this incident happened, distress calls were sent across, got to Niwa. Niwa has a station in Ida and Edo State. They responded promptly. Out of this number, 8182, over 46 survived. They were able to rescue them. And this survivor, I met with a victim who, by the special grace of God, Mr. Peter Osheje, who was in the boat with his wife and his son. The three of them survived. Met with him. I met with another victim, Mr. Peter Idapini Uku, who I personally interviewed, and I asked to be given first-hand information on what actually happened, and the Niwa that were on ground before we arrived. And the incident was quite unfortunate. It had never happened in the history of the state. We never pray, the history of Ibaji local government rather, never pray that this kind of ugly incident happened again. Onugwa is a quiet village in Ayaward in Ibaji local government, with an inhabitant of barely over 1,000, losing almost 30 persons, young ones, and people at their prime. It's quite unfortunate. It's quite monumental to them, because our thoughts, our prayers are with the family and the village that lost their loved ones. We pray for the repose of the souls of the departed ones. To speak, in fact, yesterday night, this morning, they just set on the river to look for the corpses. You know, when this incident happened, since the flood is high now, and the current course will be very swift, they will be going as far towards Onitsha, towards Asaba, to be looking for the corpses. But yesterday, we had about 11 corpses recovered. Thank you.
So does that mean then that the death toll has increased from the 26 that we heard of initially?
Yes, the death toll, you know, we would subtract the survivor from the entire occupants of the boat. We had about 80 occupants in the boat. Out of these numbers, 46 came out alive. And the remaining ones, obviously, you know, the river is large. If there is nobody that was rescued immediately, it's expected that the rest of them may have drowned. But as it is, the ones that are rescued, we have 46 of them that yesterday.
Tell us, what is regulation like for boat travel in Ibaji, local government area of Kogi State, and indeed in other parts of Kogi State, if water transport must happen, is there a ministry from the government that regulates water transport so that we can understand whether these people were wearing life jackets or not, and are there marshals to ensure that there isn't overloading?
Yes, we have a Ministry of Transport in the state, and they have been doing wonderfully well. We have a NIWA that have been supporting the ministry in ensuring that water transport is safe and ensuring compliance to the necessary gadget that they are supposed to put on while on the river. And you know, Kogi State, in particular, Ibaji local government is a local government that more than 80–90% of the entire local government is covered by water, and is the local government that is almost 200,000 inhabitants. So if this whole number have to travel from different locations, we have over 80 villages in the local government. If they have to travel from different locations, obviously some of the gadgets, especially the life jackets, may not be available as much to them. But NIWA has made a tremendous effort to providing them with life jackets along the coastal land. Kogi State Ministry of Transport equally did their best, and Hyperdeck equally did their best. Early this year, they gave over 200,000 life jackets to people along the coastal land. But it may not be sufficient. We are talking of almost 200,000 inhabitants. Like this boat, up to about 20–30 of them had life jacket on. If the whole of them had life jacket, obviously the magnitude of this disaster wouldn't have been.
Well, I think the issues are clear. What needs to be done? Ensure more safety in terms of life jackets, ensure better enforcement as well, because you're literally just allowing people sail into their possible death without life jackets. So there should be enforcement, better monitoring, improved infrastructure in terms of boats, the jetties and all of that. I think we're all aware of the issues, and I'm glad that we know that we know. But the big question is, are we going to avert a future one? But we have to thank you so much, Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Security, Kogi State, Mr. Timothy Ojoma. Perhaps in the coming days, we'll really get to talk about your area, which is food, agriculture, because it's very important. But thank you for the work you're doing, and our commiserations once again with the people of Kogi State.
Thank you so much. We want to sincerely appreciate His Excellency Alhaji Ahmed Usman Ododo. Just like I mentioned, as soon as he heard about this ugly incident, he sent his deputy, His Excellency Joel Oyibo.
Right.
He was right there at the scene and commiserated with the people of Ibaji.
Right. And
expressed the government of Kogi State.
Well, Commissioner, we have to anchor at this point, but the point taken, and of course, more is certainly expected. Thank you once again, and I'm sure that when there are more updates, you do let us know. Thank you once again, Commissioner.
And this is where we drop the anchor for today, but we'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you so much for being there. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Kaido Kikilu. Sunrise Daily is next. To have a fantastic day.